podcast. You have Schiff and myself here, as always, covering the Sunday morning games from our Week 7 slate. To kick things off, we have the Patriots at the Jaguars in London in what should be a fairly interesting game. We saw Drake May have a very solid season debut for the Patriots and show that he is capable of passing the ball. And that was against a Texans defense that is definitely better than this Jaguars defense. If you haven't, check out the waiver wire episode. And the reason I say that is we cover Drake May a little more in depth and talk about how he could potentially be a solid streaming option this week. The Jaguars defense gives up a lot. This would be a only week 7 start, only saying that because after this week, the Patriots have a bit of rough sledding the couple weeks coming after. So Drake May, if you want to make that start, go ahead and do so. At the very least, I think he's interesting as a fantasy quarterback, and he gives a bit of relevance to the receiving room that we have not seen this season thus far. The big name everyone's worried about is Ramondre Stevenson. After missing practice completely Wednesday and Thursday, he logs a full practice today, dealing with that foot injury. He is listed as questionable. And truly, and I know I have so many people on my roster. I'm playing shift this week. So many people that are legitimate game time decisions, and Mondre probably will be one of those people. If he is able to go, I absolutely love the Mondre start. If he is unable to, I don't think Antonio Gibson is a terrible pivot. He's not super productive on the ground. He may be a little more productive this week against Jacksonville, but hopefully he gets some passes out of the backfield. The Patriots should be able to stay somewhat competitive in this one with their defense alone. So just keep heavy eyes on Mondre because we probably won't know until Sunday. The receivers, Demario Douglas was one of the top added receivers of the week. He's had back-to-back 9 target and 6 catch weeks. And he looked great with Drake May, looked like his number one target. And again, this is a very favorable matchup. So if you want to start Pop Douglas in the flex or even a wide receiver 3 this week, I don't want to say it's crazy safe, but I almost feel like it is a bit safe that he's at least getting 7-8 targets. I think it should be a good week for Pop. Outside of that, if you want to roll the dice on Hunter Henry, you know what the chances are. He did find the end zone. He got 5 targets. Just be aware. You know what game you're playing. And I mean, that's really it. The Patriots defense I give a look at, but I don't know. For fantasy purposes, there's probably 10 to 12 better defenses this week.
And yeah, just to touch a little bit on the Patriots, about the running backs. I mean, I know we look at the Jaguars defense and it's like, yes, we want to play everybody we can against them. Just looking at the rush yards per game they're giving up, they're sitting at 113.3, which is tied for the Buccaneers with 12th in the league.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that you like to see is they're giving up just about 30 points per game. So what you'd really be hoping for is, they get in at the end zone. Like if
Mm-hmm.
they're in the zone, they get a goal line carry, so on and so forth. They're able to sneak in for a touchdown. But I just think, with Mondre being a game time decision, I'd hope he's not limited or splitting carries with Gibson in this game.
Yeah.
And if it is just Gibson, while he might have a good game and he is a decently enough reliable pass catcher, I just think expectations should be tempered a little bit, especially if
Absolutely.
he doesn't get into the end zone. I don't think he'll have the greatest game because I mean, where the Jags really get killed is in the pass game. They're currently 32nd, giving up 276.7 through the air per game.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. I mean, I'm not super concerned about it because, like I said, they are currently dead last in points. Well, not dead last. That would be the Panthers, but they are second to last in points per game given up in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So there is definitely a high possibility for whoever is the starting running back to get into the end zone. Just something I'd keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
Going over to the Jags side of the ball, uh, Travis Etienne is listed as questionable with that hamstring injury. I mean, it's kind of tough because initially the report was week to week, and now he is practicing, although in limited fashion. Um, the latest report on Sleeper was he's listed as questionable, and yeah, he is listed as limited on all three of Week 7 practice reports. So he said, Doug Peterson said he thinks ETN is progressing. We still haven't made a decision yet. We're going to get through tomorrow. Could be game time.
Yep.
Given the game starts at 6:30 in the morning, if you are on the West Coast, definitely, I mean, either set your alarms because game time decisions are usually made like 90 minutes before the game. So probably try to wake up at like 6 or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you haven't prepared yourself by now and you didn't have a pivot, you didn't have like a Dearness Johnson or a Tank Bigsby, then I'd just go somewhere else completely altogether. Um, I think it's going to be a bit difficult, honestly, in this one to kind of gauge how the running back snaps are going to go. In this past week, Dearness Johnson did get the most snaps at 56%. Granted, he is kind of like their third down back, their pass catcher, and
Yeah.
they were getting whooped most of the game. So it was kind of like a comeback attempt. And we know Tank Bigsby is really good between the tackles, running the ball north and south. It's hard to say how this game is going to go. I think they're both decent-ish plays if ETN isn't able to go. Actually, checking out how the Patriots are against the run, they are currently giving up, let's see, 130.3 rushing yards per game, which is clearly in the bottom half of the league. Um, I don't know, and I mean they're giving up 23.8 points per game. It's definitely, if you need to play one of them, I don't hate it, but it just could be. I mean, both these teams are pretty bad, so it
Yeah.
could be rough. I do like the Brian Thomas Jr. start, regardless. I putting him out there. Like I said, the Patriots defense isn't necessarily what it has been in previous years. And okay, I was like, my monitor just went black. Um, Patriots are currently, yeah, giving up 228.5 yards through the air per game.
Yeah.
The Jags offense hasn't been the greatest, but we have seen Brian Thomas Jr.'s big playability. Um, I think he's a great start. Christian Kirk is a bit more shaky. And I mean, I can't recommend putting him out there. Gabe Davis, we saw what he's capable of last week, but we knew what he was capable of. He's the same player as he was on the Bills. I mean, he'll get those spike weeks every now and then, but not someone I
Mm-hmm.
can necessarily trust on a week to week basis. Evan Ingram, off the injury report, you're throwing him out there. And I mean, it seemed like the Jags D has been projected a bit higher on most platforms, but
Yeah.
just seeing what Drake May was able to do, and I mean, he might turn the ball over a few times, but the Jags give up almost 30 points a week, and May does have the capability of really slinging the ball, so
Mm-hmm.
not something that I'd necessarily really want to play around with.
Yeah.
Going into our next game, we have the Bengals taking on the Cincinnati Browns. And the funny thing about this one, although the Bengals are favored, the last I checked, I will check again. The last I checked, it's 6 points now from 6.5. When the over under is 40 or 41 and a half. Um, Joe Burrow has never won in Cleveland. So just an interesting tidbit. I know the Browns are spiraling right now. Just
Yeah.
a fun fact to throw out there. Do I think the Bengals lose this game? No, but they're heavy favorites. It's always possible, especially in a divisional game. Nick Chubb's coming back too, so you never know.
It's
But
fair.
looking at the Bengals offense in this one, I'm obviously not hesitating to start Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, or T. Higgins. The Browns defense in this one, I mean, just looking at how they are currently against the run, they're giving up 137.3 per game, which is a bit unusual for them, but their offense has been as bad as I heard something the year or the period of time where they got the two first round picks in a row that they got Miles Garrett, Baker Mayfield. Um, their offense was more productive, putting up more points and yards then than their current offense is today with Deshaun
After
Watson.
they
And
got Baker and Chubb, or the offense that was the worst and got them Baker and Chubb? Oh my gosh.
yeah,
That's,
yes.
yeah.
So that I mean, when the offense is that bad, it makes it hard for any defense to play at any kind of high level because they're on the field so much that I mean, and it doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to tire out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I'm comfortable starting Chase Brown. I think at this point he's shown that he is the more explosive back, and we saw the snaps. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was like close to 60-40 last week. Checking on that right now, it was 62-45. Just seeing them start to go Chase Brown's way a little bit. And I mean, Zach Moss did have that fumble. They were both a bit banged up going into the week. I mean, this is a team that they're obviously they have a good offense, but with them losing Joe Mixon, I think they're kind of still looking for something. And I'm leaning a bit more towards Chase Brown at this moment. I think
Yeah.
Zach Moss is still startable just because he might end up getting a decent amount of carries. It's too hard to firmly say which one is going to get the bulk of the carries, like how it's going to flip. The week before, it was 67% of the snaps to Zach Moss and 33% to Chase Brown. Granted, we saw Chase Brown be very efficient and pretty electric with his work in week 5, and that might have been what earned him, the larger role. But with such a small sample size, it's hard to really say exactly what's going to happen. So I think both of them are still playable, especially in a game where, they are projected to win by almost a touchdown
Yeah.
or So yeah, I mean, I think both of these running backs you can put in. I'm a bit more hesitant with Zach Moss than Chase Brown.
That's fair.
And then still just kind of watching the production of Eric All Jr. He seems to be the tight end that is kind of standing out this year a little more. I mean, Mike Gesicki had the few big games, and the tough thing with the tight ends in Cincinnati, as we talk about, all of them play around like from 30 to 50%, and there's no real like alpha, I guess, that takes all the targets
Mm-hmm.
or it takes all of the snaps. They have Drew Sample and Mike Gesicki out there. They all block. Um, I'll have to check on their routes, but I mean, they're all fairly equal in stats or in snaps throughout the first 6 weeks. And then Evan McPherson, as we know, is a good start for kickers. And the Bengals defense is not a terrible option in this one if you happen to have picked them up. Obviously, I know waivers have run already. And by Friday, a lot of people have kind of solidified their lineups. But if they are still out there, I mean, I just talked about how historically bad this Browns offense is,
Yeah.
and it's a decent possibility.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. And the Brown side of the ball, obviously, everyone knows, but if you haven't heard the news, Amari Cooper was traded from the Browns. It's extremely bleak. The highest projected player is Deshaun Watson with 13 fantasy points coming into this one. So it's just not a good week. It's an exciting week for anyone that has held Nick Chubb because he is expected to play in this one. I
An
don't,
exciting week is hard.
dude, it's an understatement for me with Nick Chubb specifically.
Yeah, it's just the only reason I say that is because they've come out and said he is going to be limited.
Oh, for sure.
Like, and that's the only reason. It's like I'm not necessarily. I'm happy to see him back if you have Nick Chubb, but like it's not going to be too much this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. No, and
He,
that's what I was gonna say. Like, I'm not putting him in my lineup this week. I'm excited to see what he's able to do with the carries he's going to be limited to. There's no Jerome Ford in this one, so it's going to be him, Deonta Foreman, and Pierre Strong. Again, it's exciting to see Nick Chubb play football. We're going to have to wait and see how he looks and how they ramp him up as the weeks go on. Jerry Jeudy technically steps up as the wide receiver 1 here. I don't necessarily love the Jerry Jeudy start. It's tough. The past 2 weeks, he's only seen 3 targets. He's only caught a pass each game. Again, if you don't have many other options, the one caveat we can look at here is the Bengals do have some star power. They more than likely will go up in this one, and the Browns will be forced to pass. How successful they will be doing so, probably not much. But there's only so many guys that I would assume Deshaun's going to feel somewhat confident throwing to, and Jerry is on that list. So if you have to throw him in at the flex, pray he has some type of decent consistency in this one. I think he will get 5+ targets, but what he does with those, I can't promise you anything good. And David Njoku, and we've talked about it, he's someone you can throw in this week. He's been Deshaun's number 1 guy. He gets open. He's off the injury report. He was a full participant at practice on Wednesday. He's good to go. You have to throw him in. And I mean, that's really it for the Browns side of the ball. Like, I don't really want to throw in Dustin Hopkins or even consider it because I just don't know what this offense is going to be able to do. It's just,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the only good start on the Browns this week is David Njoku.
for sure. For
I
sure.
could easily see him getting and I know everybody's problem with Deshaun Watson. I have the same issue. That's why I'm far more hesitant with Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm more willing to play Patriots wide receivers
Then Browns. That's
than
fair.
Browns wide receivers.
That's fair.
But when it comes to the tight end position, the targets are way different. They're not going to be as far down the field. They're going to be closer to the line of scrimmage. And I could see David Njoku getting like 10, 11, 12 targets in this game
Yeah.
just because that is probably going to be the only thing that works.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way I see it. And honestly, I'm personally playing David Njoku over Dalton Kincaid this week.
Yeah.
Amari Cooper's first week in the offense could go well, could go poorly, but you started the week off with 22 points from Denver's defense. You got to make a splash play there. So I think a bunch of
Yeah.
targets are heading David Njoku's way, and might get like 50, 60 yards on like 10 catches, but I will take that.
Yeah. Yeah, that one will be a fun one, and honestly, I think this next one's going to be a bit of a. I don't know. I don't know. It's the Dolphins at the Colts. Tyler Huntley's getting more acclimated with this offense. The Colts are favored by 3. The over/under is 43.5. Obviously, we never look to start Tyler Huntley. What I'm looking for is for him to potentially break 200 passing yards, which is very doable in this one. He's got his weapons back. You got to throw Achane in the lineup. He's been very poor. Week 5 against New England, obviously, at the injury, I'm going to give him the pass on that. But weeks 3 and 4 did not look good for him. But he's just he's too explosive to keep out of your lineup. The same goes with Tyreek. He had a great week 1, and he's been relatively quiet since then, has not got in the end zone. Look for Tyreek to potentially have a good week in this one. And Jalen Waddle right now reminds me a lot of like Brandon Ayuk. just with his like what his volumes looked like, what his productions looked like. It's obviously a very different circumstance, but just stats wise, where you drafted him, the performance you've gotten, it's very similar. He has not gone double digits since week 1. But this is a favorable matchup. We have the Bears and the Cowboys on bye, so we're missing a couple good receivers, a couple good plays. There's injuries out there. If you have to start Waddle, I don't hate it because this Colts defense isn't the greatest against the pass, but that's a scary one. I hope you have a better option out there, but Jalen Waddle is always capable, just like Tyreek, of breaking a big play. You just have to hope it happens in this one.
Yeah, trying to navigate the Colts side of the ball is something of a mission this week. So it looks like Anthony Richardson's going to play. That is something that we do know. Another thing that we do know is that Jonathan Taylor is not going to play. So it's looking like it's going to be another combination of Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson. Um, Last week, just looking at their snaps, the way they broke up was 60% to Sermon and 39% to Goodson. Sermon did not do very much with the amount of work that he got.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw the week that he did kind of have some fantasy relevance. We talked about the fact that had he not fallen into the end zone, it would not have been such a great week. He wasn't very efficient on the ground then, and definitely was not last week.
Yeah.
Goodson made a little bit better of his work, but we'll see how that goes. And getting to the wide receivers, it gets a bit difficult because
Oh my gosh.
we saw a DNP from Michael Pittman on Wednesday, full practice on Thursday, and he did not practice today. So from Shane Steichen, he said, yeah, he'll be out there in reference to Michael Pittman. Um, Also, on the Colts, Alec Pierce and Josh Downs both have questionable tags. So it's looking like all three of these receivers are going to be somewhat of game time decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And if none of the three are able to go, all eyes are on Adonai Mitchell as honestly a decent spot start if you need him. We saw the one capability of Anthony Richardson. Okay, not the one capability, but like the one that stands out is his deep ball.
Yeah.
And Adonai Mitchell is a downfield threat. So there might be some production there if the other three aren't able to go. But I mean, if it's just going to be Michael Pittman, at that point, I think he's worth the start. If it's just going to be like Josh Downs or it just depends. It's something I'm monitoring up until the game
Yeah.
because value can be determined by who plays and who doesn't, just based on like them being the only reliable receiver out there on the field. The ball is going to have to go to somebody. And then like the receivers, Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Grants, and that whole bunch, I don't think are very playable. Matt Gay, if you want to throw the Colts kicker out there, and then the Colts defense, we know we're not really trying to play.
Yeah.
So that's really all for that. It's just kind of difficult trying to gauge what's going to happen with this wide receiver room.
For sure.
And then going into our next game, though, we have the Eagles at the Giants. The over under. Last I saw it, it is probably different now. Yeah, it is. The over under is 43, and the Eagles are now 3.5 point favorites. Um, Looking at the injuries in this game, we have a healthy wide receiving core for the Eagles now. However, unfortunately, it looks like Dallas Goedert is going to miss this game. So I guess if you're desperate for a tight end start, Grant Calcaterra becomes a somewhat interesting option.
I
But
agree. I think he's a little more interesting than people will give him credit for.
yeah, it's one of those where realistically, when the Eagles have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown out there, and you also got to remember this is Saquon Barkley's homecoming. That could have a little bit to do with his usage in this game. I don't know. I'm not necessarily going to call that. But just when you go out and you start a second string tight end in place of, Godare, which there's been times where we've seen his usage drop like significantly
For sure.
when Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are out there. Granted, he could put up a decent stat line. I'm just, when there's guys in leagues like Frymouth that are available and you could
Yeah.
take a chance on him with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Honestly, even Cade Otton in a game with a pretty high over under the Ravens Monday night. He's out there all the time.
For
He's a
sure.
normal part of that offense. It's just some chances I'd rather. I mean, it could end up paying off, but it's just one where if it duds you, you end up looking back on it like, why the hell did I do this? So that's kind of just my process with that. If you're in a
For
tougher
sure.
league and there's not many options, then it's along like go for it. But yeah, so we're keeping an eye on him though. Grant Calcaterra is going to be the tight end one for the Eagles this week.
Yeah.
And then obviously you're playing Saquon, you're playing Devontae Smith, you're playing AJ Brown. Jalen Hurts has been very good when both Devontae and AJ have played. So, and then I mean the Eagles defense, not really. I mean
Mm,
Malik Neighbors is going to be back in this one. The Giants offense has not been anemic by I mean, obviously, that game against the Bengals, they only put up 7 points. They had opportunities to score more, and then they had like a missed field goal, so on and so forth. But they've been able to move the ball. It's not like they've just been punting every single. It's just been a three and out, three and out, three and out. Like this offense has the potential to put up points, and the defense is honestly that pass rush. I believe still leads the league in sacks, so
yeah.
they're a threat. They could definitely make this a game. Um, so yeah, and then Jake Elliott, probably a decent start. Always seems to
Yeah.
kick a 50-yard field goal.
Yeah. The Giants side of the ball, Daniel Jones has looked better this season as it's gone on as well. I will give him that credit. He had a rough week last week, obviously without Malik Neighbors, who is by far his favorite target. He returns in this one. Obviously, we start Malik Neighbors, we start Wandell. Darius Slayton saw the big up spike in targets when Malik Neighbors went down, so that was good for him. But now that he's back, I think that will kind of spike back down for him. Wandale has been much more consistent, even with Malik Neighbors in the lineup. I mean, he's gone double digit targets 3 times of the 6 games. I think Wandale has been one of the best like flex starts for the season. Like a guy you picked up off waivers realistically, and you're like, let me throw him in at the flex. He gets it done for you every week. Exactly what you would want. So I think he's got to stay in. I don't like the Devin Singletary start this week. Only, I mean, for a couple of reasons. The Eagles do have a solid defensive line. He's missed a couple games, and in those couple games he missed, Tyrone Tracy looked good. He looked
Did
explosive.
you see what Brian Dable said?
What did he say?
He said that Tyrone Tracy is going to get a significant amount of work, that he has earned it.
Yeah, and he has. And if you watched pieces of that game against Cincinnati, I guess the right piece, where they talked about Tyrone Tracy was a wide receiver and converted to a running back. So if the Eagles, which I assume they probably will in this one, they go up on the Giants are in passing downs. Tyrone Tracy's a very good pass catching running back. Last week he caught all 6 of his targets for 57. He's just he's younger, he's utilized extremely well for them. He's someone you can throw out and have him run real routes, not just like wheel routes or easy routes running backs normally run. He's very capable. I don't necessarily like starting either of them this week. I want to see kind of how it plays out. If you had to start one, I kind of feel like it's like the Bengals a little bit. Like I think Tyrone Tracy probably offers you more boom potential than Singletary. If they get to the goal line, it's probably going to be Singletary punching it in. But on, passing downs, getting you catches out of the backfield, I think Tyrone offers you significant more in that category. But we'll have to see. I don't know how the Giants are going to perform. The Eagles have to get it going. And Sirianni's got the whole fan base fired up. He's a maniac. Did you see him yelling at the fans?
Yeah,
He's a criminal. What is wrong with him? Uh,
I don't know, but yeah, it'd be nice to see them get it going.
yeah, and just to touch on Greg Joseph, because he is terrible, do not play him. Do not consider playing him. He was missed both his field goals last week, finished with -1, so don't consider that. This next one, is this our game of the week? Or one of them? It has to be the
Definitely one of
NFC
them.
game of the week for sure. It's Lions at the yeah. Lions at the Vikings. The over under is 50.5. The Vikings are favored by 1.5, which means the Lions are actually favored very slightly in this one. The Lions side of the ball, man. Jared Goff started pretty poorly the first 3 weeks, and then he has kind of kicked it into gear. I know this Minnesota defense is very good. Stephon Gilmore has been locked down for them, just like he was for the Cowboys. But if you're dealing with buys or whatever the case and you are playing Jared Goff, I do not mind it, especially if you have a stack with either Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Laporta, I guess. But I don't mind the Jared Goff start. I do think there could be a chance that a lot of these touchdowns, if they're scored, come on the ground. But to be fair, that's every single week. No matter the matchup with the Lions, you just don't know. Jameer and David Montgomery are obvious starts. Amon-Ra, the almond man, the milkman, he's in there. Jameson Williams, I had to get it in there. It's my first one of the entire year of saying it. I had to. But Jameson Williams came out extremely hot the first 2 weeks with 20 targets. In these past 3 games, he saw 9 combined. Now he has hit for ginormous plays these past 2 weeks. I want to see him get a little more consistency with the targets, but I do think you play Jameson Williams. He's the clear, obvious number 2 in this offense. He's been getting volume. He's really taken Laporta's role as that number 2 option. And to talk about Laporta, dude, I feel like you have to start him, but it's scary. It is very scary. Last week was his first week over double digits, and he got it on a single target, 52-yard touchdown. Great play. But seeing him get one target was not ideal at all because he hasn't even really been that involved on the season. So I don't know. I know we talked about it when we were covering the recaps from this past week against the Cowboys, but unless you're in a good spot where you can potentially take Laporta out, it's just he has not nearly lived up to the expectation we had for him. No.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just taking a look at the. There's a really high over under in this game, but it's just looking at both of these teams' defensive stats. The Vikings are fourth, and the Lions are eighth in points per game given up. The Vikings are only giving up 15.2 points per game. The Lions are only giving up 18.2 points per game. Both of them aren't even giving up 3 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
And you look at, okay, how are these teams rushed? How are they on giving up yards? The Vikings are giving up 67.2 yards per game on the ground.
Wow.
The Lions, we know that they're good on the ground. They are the number 3 rushing defense, giving up 83.2. We look
Mm-hmm.
at the pass yards per game. Now, this is where we have a little more leeway, I guess. So this is where we have the Vikings. Now, where are you? Vikings are giving up 263 yards per game in through the air, and the Lions are giving up 246. So this is where I feel comfortable making. I
Yeah.
mean, you know that Jahmyr Gibbs is a good pass catcher on that side of the ball. You know that David Montgomery has a knack for finding the end zone. So you're not taking either one of them out of your lineup. And I mean, Aaron Jones, it looks like he's going to play in this game, albeit we did see, the week he went out. eh, He's had a whole week in between. They've had the bye week,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes me nervous, especially they went out and traded for Cam Akers going into this week.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, yeah, that could be just a little bit more insurance, but to me, that says something. It's someone that was there before that, they have a little bit of comfort with. Maybe their RB1 just isn't all the way full, like back to full health. So
You know what
there's
the
that
injury is too, right?
with Aaron Jones.
Mm-hmm. It's his hamstring.
Uh,
It's all whenever he's banged up, it's his hamstring.
it's
It's
been his
always
hamstring.
his
A
hamstring.
lot of people are dealing with hamstrings this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, just wanted to add that both of these teams are very good against the rush. So
Mm-hmm.
the running backs might not perform so well in this one, and it genuinely might not be as high scoring, like high flying affair as we want it to be.
Yeah.
That being said, we see the passing yards both these teams are giving up. Still absolutely starting Justin Jefferson. I think Jordan Addison's a great start in this one, and that's honestly it. Sam Darnold, I do believe he is startable. I do believe he can finish as a top 12 quarterback this week. Just like I said, both these teams are vulnerable against the pass, not very much against the run. It's pretty much two pass funnels against each other. Whether or not the points come, we will see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm starting the pass catchers, both the quarterbacks in this one. And Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver, not really. I mean,
Yeah.
apparently TJ Hawkinson is passing all the tests with flying colors, but he's not yet ready to play.
Yeah.
So should be ready within the next week or two. The defenses, I don't know.
The
I'm
Vikings defense has been so good. Like every matchup they have had, their defense was number 1 coming into the bye. They're now number 2. Their worst fantasy output was against the Packers, and they still, despite giving up 29 points, still scored 9 fantasy points. They went double digits against the Niners, double digits against the Texans. It's just tough. Like I know there's
it is.
much more favorable matchups, but it's a good defense, man. It has been
If
a
you want to
really good
stay in
defense.
the flames with them, I don't hate it.
Yeah,
If you want to start their kicker, Will Reichert, I think it is. I don't hate that either.
yeah,
And I mean, like I said, we've talked about how few points the Vikings are giving up. I think that could change this week. We saw what
for
happened in
sure.
their first tough divisional game. Started off well when it came down to the wire. Things went
Unraveled
to
fast.
blows.
Yeah,
And I think that very much could happen this week. We could definitely see both of these teams' points per games given up, shoot way up after this one.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean that's all I really got for that one. Going, oh well, going into our next one, we have Seattle at Atlanta, and this is another juicy one in terms of the over/under, the highest of the week. In fact, we have 51 points for the over/under. You gotta
yeah,
love that. And
yeah.
Atlanta is, favored by 3 at home, which is fair. I'm starting Geno, Ken Walker, DK Metcalf. It looks like Tyler Lockett
Is good.
should be good to
Off the
go.
report.
Starting him. I think JSN's startable in this one. I think Noah Fant's startable if you you need to go that route for tight end. I don't think it's a horrible choice. I mean, obviously there are going to be people left out like there are every week, but it's like if you're going to take chances on a game, I'd prefer it to be one with the highest over under over good lord. The highest over under of the week, and these are like the two teams with the highest pace of play in the NFL.
Oh yeah,
So it's going to be just a I think this is going to be the best fantasy game of the week. So probably staying away from the defenses in this one. I mean, I think the kickers are a go-to. So I don't really think this one's that complicated.
I agree with you. I think it's, the same with the Falcons side of the ball. Half of me with Kirk Cousins was like, he had this really rough start. Obviously went insane against Tampa Bay last week against Carolina. That wasn't necessarily, wasn't him at all having a bad game. It's just them running the Panthers into the ground, which we've seen from just about every team the Panthers play. But Kirk Cousins has some really favorable matchups coming up, and I think this can be one of them for him. I think he can be a good start. Obviously, Bijan. Tyler Algier, I think if someone of the... I'm not forcing him into the lineup, barring injury, things like that.
All right. Tyler Algier or Alexander Mattison.
Alexander Mattison. 100%. Just because that's if Zamir doesn't play. If Zamir doesn't play, Madison's going to get 4 catches out of the backfield for 30 yards, and there's 7 points for you right there. That's the only reason. He's going to get passes out of the backfield.
I'm not that confident that he outscores him this week, but
Gentleman's bet. I'll take Madison.
I'm on the Algier side of this one.
To be fair, I think either one of those, whoever's right in this one, there's potential neither of these guys have good weeks, but one of them's going to score more. It's just tough. Algier went double digits a single time before this past week, which was 10 on the dot against New Orleans. He's only caught 7 passes out of the backfield in 6 weeks, and he's only carried it more than 9 times this past week. So I just think his volume alone that he's going to get in this one, that's why when you said Madison, I'm like, I know Madison is going to play 70% of the snaps. Algier, I see playing 35 to 40, somewhere in there. So,
but my whole thing is how many snaps? How many plays are the Raiders going
that's
to
fair.
run? Compared to, I think the Falcons are going to end up running a lot of plays in this game, whereas if that happens, it's just there are paths to, like you said, to both of them having a decent week. There's paths to both of them having absolutely terrible weeks. And, we'll see. It just depends on which, process you're more comfortable with.
For sure. And it's one of those where it's I feel, and it can be possible, but I feel like it's a rare possibility there is someone that is looking at it and that is their team. If you're sitting there and that's who you're choosing between, I know someone is. There's for sure people out there with that exact choice, but I'll pray for you because that's tough, man. That is very tough this week if those are your 2 options. Obviously, Drake London and Darnell Mooney get the start. Ray McLeod, I think if someone's going to get left out,
you take a look at Shmee's team, starting Alexander Mattison and Devin Singletary is only, Jonathan Taylor's out.
Is Guerrero. Mm-hmm.
So it's realistic.
No, it is.
Unfortunately, these are the times that some of us are living in.
Yeah.
Watching the waiver wire for obviously Najee's off the waiver or off the injury report now, but had he still been, you're watching that one for Jaylen Warren. You're watching to see Mondre game time decision for Antonio Gibson. Unfortunately, some of us are at that point.
Yeah, that's very true. But outside of the receivers, Kyle Pitts, I think, can be another solid start. He's gone double digits the past 2 weeks. Younghoe Koo, we avoid the defense. And we keep it pushing to what should be another really good game. The Texans at the Packers in Green Bay. The over-under is 48, and Green Bay is favored by 2.5. CJ Stroud, man. He had a solid week last week.
I think he's okay in this one. I think
I just my tough part with him is I like and it's not his fault, but his fantasy projection shot up so much. He was being drafted as like the QB 4 or 5. Like you had the Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts era, and then CJ Stroud was like number 5 right after that. And it's like he just hasn't lived up to that completely. Yeah, I agree. I think he's an okay start. He doesn't provide rushing upside, but he's passed for a touchdown in every game, multiple touchdowns in 3 out of the 7 so far. I think he'll be all right. I agree. I mean, it's just hard to bench him if you have him. Joe Mixon should be a guy we obviously start. Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. Tank Dell finally took that leap forward that we were looking for. All it took was Nico Collins to not be on the field for him to do so. But for the time being, Nico is not there, so Tank Dell can absolutely eat. Dalton Schultz, I just don't see it with him. Even with Nico Collins, he got 8 targets. He got 6 the week before. I don't think he's the worst start, but there's guys like Pat Fryermuth, guys like that I just think are more involved because although Nico's gone, Joe Mixon came back. So you still have Joe, Stephon, Tank Dell, and then Dalton Schultz. He's still the 4th option there. So it's just tough, but if that's the move you got to make, you got to make it. Kame Fairbairn has been incredible, and I don't think we can roll their defense in this one.
nah. I mean, I'd prefer not to roll either defense in this game. Just being realistic, like why would you
Yeah.
bank that hard on turnovers when all signs are pointing to it being a high-scoring game? I mean, this is just one. Yes, anything may happen, and it might be a defensive battle, but we're not banking on that in this game. These are two good offenses, and hopefully we get what we want to see, which is an offensive battle.
Yeah.
So, I think easy enough. You're starting Jordan Love. You're starting Josh Jacobs. I mean, the thing about Josh Jacobs, if you want to go out and try to acquire him right now, if you can get him, low or for one of these guys like
How low can I get him from you?
I don't think, and no one can get him from me. I mean,
Oh, okay.
this is what I've been waiting for a while. But no, I mean, and that's not even saying that this is necessarily going to happen. But just if you take a look at Josh Jacobs' numbers, he's currently sitting at. Let me just. So much easier to look on the phone out. Josh Jacobs is currently sitting at the running back 22 right now. If you look at his stats, you go to rushing yards, check on the leaders. Josh Jacobs currently sitting at 5th in rushing yards.
It's the touchdowns, man.
He has 1 touchdown on the season, and it's like Derek and I talked about last. And I mean, even his receiving yards, he has, granted, only 11 receptions on 14 targets, which isn't great, isn't horrible for a running back, but I mean, he does have 101 receiving yards, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
But it's like what we talked about. I don't think it's going to all come on, or all of the touchdowns are not going to be from the arm of Jordan Love. There are
You
going to
would
be times
think.
where they get stopped at I mean, it's
For sure. No,
we
I'm agreeing with you, but it's just been incredible that it
it
has
has
somehow.
been, but things always kind of fall back down to earth.
For sure.
They do, and I do believe. I mean, the touchdowns will come for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
I don't believe that he's going to finish the year with like 3 or 4 touchdowns. I do think they're on the way, and I mean, hey, I think he might be due for one in this game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he is a good trade for target. Just something that I wanted to mention. with his lack of touchdowns right now. But other than that, Jaden Reed's a start. Romeo Dobbs, I think I feel confident starting him. Christian Watson's more of an upside play, but we saw what he's capable of, albeit
Mm-hmm.
on a lesser amount of snaps and targets. And then, with Dontavian Wick's health and with the reestablishment of it looked like that trio last week, I think I'm good off of Dontavian Wicks right now. If he, happens to find his way back to relevance again, we'll have that discussion. But Brandon McManus is now the kicker for. Oh, and then Tucker Kraft is still a good start. Brandon
Yeah.
McManus, now the kicker for the Green Bay Packers. If you want to start him, decently high over under in this game. He was effective for the Broncos at times.
Yeah.
I don't hate it at all. And the Green Bay defense, I
It's tough. That's another defense, though. They have been incredible. They're the number 3 defense.
yeah, but it's like some of some of it seriously you have to look at the matchups and you have to look at like
They
how they scored and what they did and if they scored touchdowns and those touchdowns were the reasons why they did what, because I mean seriously, if you just got to be careful, because if you're playing them based on how they have performed up to this point, you really could get burned by the amount of points put up in this game. And if they don't get any turnovers or
for
touchdowns, I
sure.
mean, a good defense like that, you could still end up, based on the matchup, with like a negative point total at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But that's all I really got for that one. Going into our last morning game, oh God, this is going to be very easy for me, especially due to the fact, I mean, Will Levis is now questionable. It's the Titans at the Bills. Over under in this one. Last time I checked was 41.5. It is 41, and the Bills are now favored by 9.5, up from 8.5. I guess Will Levis being questionable makes that
Miles
go up.
Garrett's Miles Garrett's helmet's favorite player would potentially be playing.
Yeah, I just don't think he makes it any worse for the Titans. I mean, he doesn't necessarily make it any better, but I don't think his decision making is as bad as Will Levis is.
I agree.
The one player I'm looking to start on the Titans is Tony Pollard.
Yeah, Tajay's out this week as well. Although I know, like, he doesn't affect Tony Pollard, but, like, that's even
Not
more. You know what I
necessarily,
mean?
yeah. I mean, Tony Pollard sitting, you know, he's been every week except one. He's been over 15 PPR points. Buffalo's been bad against the rush. I think he has a great week. Um, Full steam ahead, Tony Pollard. No one else. I
Yeah.
just don't have, like, after last week, I just don't have the confidence to put a Titans pass catcher out there.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you for that. That just wouldn't be a
And I'm not
fair
gonna sit here and
recommendation.
recommend it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. So,
like if they do something good, they do something good. But I went out there. I mean, I thought Calvin Ridley would be a decent start next last week. I went out there. I put my money on it, and he got 8 targets, but it was just horrible. And I mean, regardless of Brian Callahan saying that he needs to be like a focal point of the offense, I need to see something more before.
we
That
throw him
was
in a
just
lineup. Yeah,
horrible.
that's.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bills side of the ball is fairly easy as well. Obviously, Josh Allen, James Cook, Kincaid. I mean, yeah. Unless you have a better option. Like Kincaid had a solid week last week, tied for his most targets, got his most catches on the season. My scary part is I don't know how much the Bills are going to have to pass the ball in this one. This can be another one where their defense wins it for them and they just run the ball down the throats of the Titans. That's the scary part. It's Amari Cooper's first game. I assume they're going to try to get him acclimated a little bit. There's some good cornerbacks that the Titans have. So it's a caution game for Amari. I know he's
Um. Uh, One of them is out. One of those corners is out.
Legarius or
I think Legarius is out. Hold on.
I mean, that would be a big.
No, yeah. I had this right here. Titans. No, Legarius is questionable.
Okay. So I mean, either way, it's a tough one. Amari is projected 12.3. That would be his second highest fantasy finish on the season. In offense, he doesn't know the playbook on. He's coming in fresh. It's just,
And their pass rate is already very low.
yeah, it's just tough. I think the pass catchers as a whole, it's a very tough week for them because I genuinely think like James Cook's going to be a great plays off the injury report. And then I think you're going to see a lot of you're going to see Ty Johnson. If Ray Davis is able to go, I see him getting carries. It's just one of those games where I think they're just going to run it. And they're not going to have to do anything else to win this game with ease. So just proceed with extreme caution with, Amari getting thrown into that room and affecting Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman, I guess, if you've held him this far, you continue. But we'll see going forward. I think Amari is going to put a huge damper on the values of Shakir, Coleman going forward. Potentially Kincaid, even though Kincaid's value we've hoped for every single week, and we don't see why it's not. But
I think Kincaid over time could be the only thing that concerns me is since Joe Brady has taken over for the Bills, their pass rate has just gone down and stayed at the basement. And I mean, we talked about how Josh Allen's on pace for 3,200 passing yards this year, which is just, I mean, he's a 5,400 yard or 4,500 yard guy.
For
You know
sure.
what I mean? We see him put up consistently putting up top numbers every single year, and this is just their passing numbers are basement dwelling right now. So I don't know. And the scariest part about it is this wasn't something that happened after Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs departed. This happened while they were there when Joe Brady took over.
It did. We saw Diggs at the end of the season last year. We did
exactly.
see it.
So that's why I'm not over here sitting here thinking that oh, Amari Cooper's going to change everything. They're going to start throwing the ball more. They weren't throwing the ball more when they had Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
So I don't think this just automatically changes everything, but I'm hopeful that it makes it at least a little bit better. And it might open up the field a little bit more for Dalton Kincaid. But I think this week I'd like to just see it happen.
Yeah. And that's our morning games, man. It should be another exciting week. There is so many. Again, me and Schiff are playing this week. Every single running back on my entire roster is questionable, except for Nick Chubb. Wait, Jordan Mason is no longer questionable. No injury designation. Jordan Mason will return to his lead role. Jordan Mason plays, Schiff. The worst news Schiff could have got. He had non-contact jersey on all week. Unless the Niners are lying to us again. Wouldn't be the first time. He literally had non-contact all week and all of it, including today. And all of a sudden, he's good to go.
I don't know. I don't know.
I have to roll with it. And if he doesn't play, I'm screwed. But it is what it is. I
don't even think that it's not that he won't play. This smells like a T. Higgins.
Don't say that.
Dude, it smells like a T.
We cover it in the next episode. We cover it the next one, man. We'll have another day. We'll get the Sunday afternoon, the Sunday night, and the Monday night out to you guys tomorrow. So we'll have another day of information. More than likely, there's going to be no new information regarding this, but hopefully.
We've just seen how the Niners operate this year. That's as far that we know what we know, and that it's that they're shady as far as
Mm-hmm.
information goes. And what we have seen is him in a non-contact jersey all week. That doesn't say anything positive to me, but we don't know anything because last week Michael Pittman was out for multiple weeks and then he ended up playing and catching a touchdown on a jump ball on Sunday with
Yeah.
a back injury. We don't really know anything at all. So I'm not going to sit here and
Yeah.
act like I really do. I mean, we can give our best educated guesses as far as the things we see. I'm obviously concerned about whether or not Mason will play regarding the coach speak of the Niners this year and the non-contact jersey. We will see.
Yeah.
But good luck to everybody. We will be back, like Derek said, either later or tomorrow with
Yeah.
those afternoon and Sunday, Monday night game previews.
Mm-hmm.
May the football gods be with you because injuries are only getting worse. Just look at the Saints. Oh God.
Yeah.
But yeah, that we'll cover that game eventually too. Wasn't pretty for them, kind of like we thought it might be.
Yeah.
But anyways, hopefully your week goes better than that, and hopefully you started the Broncos defense.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, if you have anything to add,
No, we're good to go.
come back next time. Take more reps with the first team.
Yes, sir.